Hello and welcome to this video. Yeah, this is the final video to cover the Candidates Tournament 2016. Today we had the final round and I have not yet made a video on round 13, the penultimate round, so I decided to just make one video for the finishing two rounds. Yeah, let's start with the games in round 13. I will still look at all of the games, but I will focus on the games that decided ultimately who will challenge the world champion later this year. So I'm starting with round 13 and go with Topalov Nakamura first. This game has no relevance whatsoever for the qualification spot, so, as Topalov is on -4 and Nakamura on -1 before this game. Nakamura fights for maybe getting back at 50%, but for Topalov this tournament is already a disaster. Okay, we have a Queen's Gambit declined. Topalov is playing all opening moves as we know, but with Nakamura it's interesting. He has a wide opening repertoire. In recent years, however, he switched to really playing very classical, very solid openings with black. He played lots of Dutch defenses and King's Indian and so on, and this is it seems a thing of the past, and now he plays Queen's Gambits at e4, e5s. It actually served him very well in recent years. The tournament results have been excellent. In this event, however, I sometimes had the impression that he was a little bit too too solid in a way in some situations. Okay, we have the classical Queen's Gambit, Bishop f4, castles, and now a3 by Topalov. This is an interesting sideline. The idea is that this is the normal move, e3, and then black is normally going for knight bd7 nowadays, and white players struggle to get something. We've seen some of that in the event as well. Topalov's idea with a3 is that if black goes knight bd7 now, he has this additional option of playing knight to b5. The idea is that c6 is bad because this is winning material, winning the exchange. So black has to go knight e8, and then after e3 and maybe c6, knight c3, we have a different position to what we usually see in this line. Black usually now tries to play something with f5, and it's just a different position. But Nakamura wins c5. This move is of course also possible. Black now switches back to the c5 plans, where he's also, theoretically speaking, okay. It's just in recent years, knight bd7 was more popular. Topalov now plays very surprisingly, actually. The normal move here is queen to c2. This is the most popular move by far, after which queen a5, rook d1 is nowadays the most topical line. This, for example, had been played in last year's Singfield Cup in St. Louis between Carlsen with white and Nakamura black. So Nakamura has experience with this kind of line. Topalov, however, captures on d5. And this is quite uncommon, as it is not believed to give white anything. After e takes, this is an important move actually. This is better than knight takes. Knight takes is of course possible. It's not a bad move, but this is just transposing to a different line, where the normal verdict is that white is maybe having a very slight advantage. It's something that I've played quite a bit via a different move order, as I said. I think in this position e takes is stronger, because black here is ready to play d4. And if you can get rid of your IQP while opening up the position, you should be in very decent shape with black. The amazing thing is that now Topalov is not really doing anything against it and plays b4. This is, it seems already, quite inaccurate. Okay, he does not have any advantage here, but he can try to at least be equal with a move like bishop e2. It is very meek, black goes d4, but still, I think it's better than b4. After b4, Nakamura immediately fired with d4. Yeah, and this is also very standard. What else is there? He won't retreat with the bishop. d4 is a lot stronger. Yeah, now Topalov decided to take after a long think. It's really a bit weird that he had to think here on move 10. The problem is also after takes queen a5, this position is not very attractive for white. He has to allow this, and yeah, it's just no good. What can you say? This is going to fall. Okay, he played this, and I mean, okay, black is more comfortable now, but it's not necessarily bad for white. An interesting thing, by the way, is the move knight to a4. This is something that I also looked at. Bishop e7 is good now, and after e takes knight to d5. This is a position where white is really playing with fire. Something like this is a very funny line, yeah, where white cannot take on b4 because that leads into immediate disaster. Check. And yeah, something like that is going to be a very quick end to this game. Yeah, white is really in a bit of trouble here. So what he did, I think, is relatively best. Yeah, capture here, and now knight takes. Queen takes is bad on account of this castling long. That's a move sometimes easily forgotten because white has played this a3 before, and putting the king somewhere here does not look very natural, but here it is very strong as it gets the king out of the e file quick here to attack the knight. So knight takes d4 was stronger. Yeah, bishop e3 now by Topalov. He forces a queen trade like this, and bishop e2 now. Yeah, this is not a happy move, but you would love to keep that bishop, but where are you going with this? If you go to c5, b6 is a direct refutation, and well, here yeah, black has a5, for example. It's just losing even more time. So bishop e2 is relatively best. Yeah, now Nakamura took that, and now is better due to the better pawn structure. He played knight g4, directly attacking this pawn, and e4 now. Yeah, also not a very happy move, but white can definitely not afford to take. This would give black fantastic play. He's got the better minor piece with the bishop and weaknesses to attack. So e4, and here the thing is also white is seriously weakened. Yeah, black has those invasion ideas. However, from here on, Topalov defends quite well. It's not a nice position to play because black is so active, but he got this trade in, that was nice, and also get some activity with rook c1. Yeah, I want to basically fast forward a little bit to a critical position a bit later. Yeah, we see that black still maintains this pull, this activity up to here. Yeah, and now here in this position, black is better, right? But what white should do now is to take here this and probably play something along these lines where you are pawn down, but you can fight. This is also a bit vulnerable, this pawn, and currently that passer is very far back. Not fun, but it's what you have to do. Topalov plays rook a1, however, far more active, but this doesn't seem to work at all. Knight takes on e5, and now check. After the check, king f7, it turns out that the black king is totally safe. Yeah, first of all, this bishop is hanging, so white has to take care of that a little bit. Played here, and now g5. Yeah, black is one pawn up. This is hanging, and this rook is basically, it's almost trapped. So rook a1 was a totally, that was failing simply. Check. Yeah, now check. There are only a couple of more moves. after knight f4, Topalov resigned. So he really had a rotten event here. Very, very bad opening in this game. When you are worse after move 13 with white, this is simply not acceptable for a player who's been in the top 10 for ages. Quite weird. He probably totally confused move orders. That's what I guess. Okay, the next game to check is Anand Giri from the penultimate round. This game has some relevance, of course, still for the top places, because Anand got into this round with a +1 score, and with a win would get back into the group of leaders with Caruana and Karjakin. Giri is on 50%, had 12 draws, and with a win against Anand also would have some remote chances left. So it's a game where both players actually should try to win. I want to look at some key moments of this game. It's an Italian game, and we see this plan now, the c3a4 plan, which is currently in fashion. It's a new idea here by Giri. I mean, new is strong, and knight e7 is not a new idea, but I think the actual move order is pretty new. It has not been seen in this event yet. This is knight e7, and now Anand goes bishop g5. This is an interesting twist, trying to, asking black, let's say, do you want a double pawn there on f6? Is that something that bothers you? Yeah, the answer is no. So just c6 was played. Black also could have played knight g6. That was certainly possible. After which knight h4 is a move that we looked at in the broadcast. Yeah, I did the broadcast on Sunday together with Grandmaster Ronan Hartsby for the ICC, and this is what we were looking at, and we concluded that black is certainly okay here. But Giri's move c6 is also fine, just ignoring bishop f6. I think that this capture is probably not leading too much. Black has very good central support, and the knight here on a3, it doesn't look so brilliant for the play against any double pawns. For example, knight c2, black can go d5, and this is not bad at all. So knight c2 played by Anand, castles, and knight h4, preempting any knight g6. d5 now played by Giri. This is again very logical strike in the center after a decentralizing move. Takes. Pawn takes was possible, but this kind of pawn center sometimes can get vulnerable. So this is an understandable decision. It's at least it's clearly a possible and good move. Now white is putting some pressure on the e5 pawn, and black is defending this with bishop g4. After rook e8, the move d4 is actually slightly puzzling for black. You don't want to take. This is
check.
Kind of is giving white a little bit too much in terms of piece activity. So e4 maybe, but then knight e5. Then knight e5 looks a little bit tricky with maybe the bishop coming around. Not that it's fantastic for white, but it looks like he's having a little something. This is why Giri played bishop g4, bishop h4 now. The interesting point of this move is that after h3, black is going to h5, and the move g4 is punished very heavily by e4. That's very nice. This is hanging, but there's this idea, the check. So after the capture, queen g3,
check.
White is
check.
Losing immediately. Quite funny. And white can resign. The move g4 is suicidal. Anand went bishop h4, going for this, regrouping against the e5 pawn. However, Giri has to move knight f4. That's a good move, putting pressure on d3. White cannot really allow this knight to stay on f4 for a long time, so he simply takes it. And now goes d4. Yeah, this bishop looks a little bit dumb now, but it immediately gets activated with c5. And here we see that black should be okay in this position. White doesn't have any great move now. Taking is bad. Yeah, something like this. Not very nice. And d5 is just strategically wrong. It makes this bishop look very stupid while this is getting activated. Yeah, moves like knight e4 or rook d8 to attack this pawn come to mind. Yeah, Anand had to be modest and play bishop e2. That's what he did. And now we have this position. Yeah, black has the bishop pair and good pieces, but white has the better pawn structure. Yeah, we can fast forward a little bit. We had those trades here.
Check.
And now bishop f2. Yeah, I actually clicked this a little bit too strong, too quickly. Yeah, I wanted to kind of make a little bit of a show out of that move, but Giri really took on f2.
Check.
Yeah, he had, he's gotten lots of criticism over the internet that he's played so many draws, and I think this is only partly justified. There were like 2 or 3 games maybe where he really played in a very, very modest fashion and not really going for it. But okay, what about this? He just sacrificed on f2. Yeah, okay, white has to take it. Check. And it's very much forced. Yeah, the move knight d4 is punished with this. So white has to go back. And now knight h5, threatening mate. Tja, white only has one move to continue here. He played g4. And what was Giri's idea? He took now with the pawn. And this is the thing. We again have a mate threat with black. And this knight is close to joining the action. It seems that if you look at all this with the help of an engine, that Giri's sacrifice is not entirely correct. And it seems that rook d4 is the move to prove that. Yeah, how does that work, rook d4? Maybe rook ce8 is the relatively best move. If black captures here, knight takes, then white is a lot better. Yeah, one point is that this knight is hanging. So if queen takes d4, for example, for that tactic, white can actually just take. There is no problem whatsoever. Queen is covering this, and black is very unhappy about the knight being traded, because the knight with knight f4 is some kind of source for counterplay. Yeah, rook e8 is maybe the best try, and after that probably a5 is the best move, and white is better here. Yeah, I mean it's still a game that has to be played, and I'm very certain that the practical chances that black has are pretty substantial. I mean, the white king is in danger. Objectively speaking, though, I think white is clearly better. I mean, the engine gives a win, basically. 1.4, something like that. But it's a different matter if you ask a computer or let 2 humans play in time trouble. I think it was still a very brave decision by Giri to sacrifice the piece. And in some way it paid off, because Anand now played bishop d3. It didn't play rook d4. After this move, I think black is close to having full compensation, or probably he has full compensation. It's rather difficult to get to grips with this position. Okay, first of all, g2 is the threat, so knight d4 is played, closing that diagonal. And now g6 covering the f5 square. And queen f6. Black does not have something very clear in terms of threat. He's just keeping this dangerous position with the knight and the pawn. It's very difficult for white to coordinate. Anand ultimately decided to play bishop f3, and this is actually returning some material. Check. And check. So there's an exchange that black won. But that knight was immensely annoying. So very understandable decision by a former world champion. Yeah, b5. takes, and queen e4. Let's take stock. Black has rook and pawn against the two minor pieces, but white has a wide open king, and the pieces currently on the white side are not perfectly coordinated. If we go ahead a couple of moves up to this point here, queen b3, this position is probably exactly equal, because it's a fine balance between the activity and black attacking weaknesses and counterplay against the king. The way Anand plays now is a bit risky, but we have to understand that he needs to win to get keep in contention for the qualification spot. He went knight e5, giving up that pawn. It seems that this ultimately also is just a draw, but yeah, I mean, it was difficult to suggest something else. He was just going for it in a way. Gave up that pawn and now played queen to f4. This is a very risky winning try, but understandable given the tournament situation. The move knight c6 also looks pretty good, yeah, intending knight here, but black goes rook e8. White now can play knight e7 for a funny tactic, but after rook takes and the check. Yeah, this will end in a draw as well. I think Anand certainly saw that line and decided to play queen f4 to put more problems. Yeah? It is, however, still nothing for white. In fact, it's rather risky for white, but we'll see. Queen a2, covering f7, and now c4. And it closes that diagonal. Giri plays that well. He plays queen a7 now. Check. King h2 takes, and bishop d5. That was what Anand was hoping for, probably, when he played into that line. We come to a critical position now. After the next move, the position is immediately equal, and also it's kind of clear that it is equal in a way. Rook f8. Rook f8 was played. We'll see what happens after that, but an interesting move also suggested by computers here is the move rook c5. It might be that this is still a draw after the move queen to d4. It's a pretty strong move setting up this pin. One point is that after rook c7, here white will probably hold a draw without that much difficulty. It's still a bit tricky. One thing is, you're in this pin, so the pawn cannot move, and after king g7, knight f7 is possible, as the king and pawn ending here is a draw. This is a draw. It's a pawn down, but still a draw. The thing that can be tried is the following. This, and black, of course, now can continue this position and try to make use of the fact that those two pieces are kind of tied to one another. Makes it somewhat awkward, yeah? Rook c7, for example. White has to go back here. And now this, and you have to check, and it really looks weird, but it seems that this is holding. Yeah, the computer doesn't find a win, at least, which is pretty amazing. It looks very strange, this kind of bishop-knight scenario. But this is at least something that black can try to play for a win. Sorry. Another move that was interesting was king to g7. It was also possible. The move that Giri played, rook f8, however, is a draw. It really is a draw due to queen f6. Anand now goes for that. He has no way of continuing the game. I mean, he could have, he can take here, but you're rather playing for a loss here, yeah? Okay, maybe you can still take on f7 here, that's possible, but there's really no winning idea or so with white. So queen f6, and why is this a draw? Because knight takes g6 is the key idea. Giri played the check, went back, and king g2, I think they repeated here basically. Check. Yeah, and here draw agreed. The idea is always knight takes g6. This is the thing. So if black, let's say, goes back here, and he just went back and forth here to cover the checks. I just want to show the drawing idea how to do that. Maybe after queen b8 or something like that. Then knight f7 actually wins. Where is a way to show the draw? This one. Then knight g4 actually wins. That's also a problem. Yeah, black has to do those queen moves. Probably, otherwise he loses even. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So there was an interesting game actually. Giri really tried something, and it didn't. It didn't quite work. But he still could have gotten probably very close to win if he plays better in this critical situation. The next game I want to check is Aronian Karjakin. So this is still very relevant for the top standings, as Karjakin was on +2 before that game, while Aronian was back on 50%, and with the win could entertain some slight hope still. Yeah. Okay, we have got c4, and this is again played, and it's the d5 line, the reversed dragon Sicilian. A line that we only had seen once in this tournament. We had seen far more bishop before. And this has a very solid reputation, so it was surprising to not see that too often, to see it earlier. Okay, Aronian with a different interpretation. In an earlier game between Svidler and Giri, we had seen this b4 setup, but bishop e3 is of course also possible. What white is going for here is to put something on c5. Ideally, put a bishop there, trade bishops, and then put a knight there. This is white's normal idea. Knight d5, bishop d2. If bishop c5 here in this position, then d6 is pretty decent. Black is quite okay with this kind of position. b6 is not ideal, but it's not a big weakness anyway. So bishop back, a5, and knight c5. Yeah, netting the bishop pair. a4 and rook b1. So white has the two bishops, which he's certainly happy about, but they're not doing that much yet. White also has the b file, so he can attack something on b7. Yeah, black's position is rather solid though. It's not very exciting or anything, but black is certainly certainly not in trouble. I think in the upcoming part of the game, Aronian makes nice, slow and steady progress. Yeah, he gets his bishop a little bit more active. The knight comes around. e3 to cover the d4 square. And knight came to e4. Yeah, now knight d5 was played and the bishop was secured on e1. Yeah, this is a critical position. And to be perfectly honest, I'm still not 100% sure about the next couple of moves, to be honest. So one move that is possible now, and probably the most obvious choice, is the move c6. This was not played by Karjakin. I think he rejected it probably on account of white being able to sacrifice him. This and this is pretty nice for white. It's a full exchange. You don't even have a pawn at the moment. But it's a very strong knight, and the whole coordination of the pieces is pretty good. Also, you have very good chances to get one of the b-pawns, and then even from a material point of view, it's not so bad. I understand that maybe Karjakin wanted to avoid that. It looks a bit awkward, to play this position with black. He took on a3, but this is a very risky decision and possibly a bad one. Yeah, Aronian now played a very interesting move, c6. Intermediate move, attacking the queen. Black cannot take white's queen, as then after c takes d7, the position is surprisingly bad for black. There are simply too many threats now coming. First of all, the knight is of course attacked on b1, and if it escapes to its only available square, then knight c5 is a huge issue. hangs. Knight e6 coming. I mean, this is a disaster. Oh, and rook a1. Yeah, this is also trapping the knight. It's really, really bad. So that is not possible at all. After c6, in fact, black doesn't have have a huge choice. He had to go to e7, which he did. Having a look also at that stranded knight. Yeah, queen a2. Attacking b7, attacking d5. So quite a number of things hanging. bc6 is good. Rook takes and bishop f7. Now covering the knight on d5. The whole position looks very shaky, that black has. And Aronian plays the critical move rook c5. This breaks this diagonal and attacks the knight, but also attacks d5. Now Karjakin chooses a very tactical way of doing this and plays knight takes e3. It's a pretty hard decision to make. The alternative was knight to b5 in this position. It looks funny because white can take, but there is a point. Takes, and again knight takes e3, opening up this diagonal. In this position, after queen to b1, knight g2, knight g2.
Check.
It's crazy in a way, but in this line,
check.
And then king g2 and a3. I think white has a lot better. White has better winning chances actually than we see in the end game in the game. It's kind of similar, but here there's a d pawn still, and I think this should help. Yeah, we have to compare this with the later game. This is what Karjakin played, but here he's also under huge trouble. Aronian now took the knight. The alternative was to first capture on b8 with check, and only then grab that knight. Thing is, this is also not totally clear, but it should be better for white. Now there's knight c2 and knight g2. Yeah, knight g2, king takes, and now probably queen to d7 to cover that. After rook a5, white, rook a5. White is better. I mean, black will struggle and try its best, but white here is better, and this is a better position than we reached in the game. The move knight c2 is not helping, as after, I think, queen to c1, white is retaining this piece. Back. Probably here. And now king to f1 to cover the check. Yeah, here white is better. He's a piece up for a pawn. You should not underestimate black's practical chances. This is not so easy to win, as d3 is weak and the pieces are uncoordinated, and that a pawn can become a force pretty soon. A very difficult phase of the game here. But rook takes b8 was probably the moment here for Aronian to get something decisive. He took on a3, and now the coming sequence is almost forced. Traded, and knight takes g2. King takes, and a3. Now we see that the a pawn is the source for counterplay. Queen to b7 and queen to d8. It's very strong play. Queen c7 now was played. Yeah, what else is there? Not much. Yeah, if you take with the rook, then bishop d5 is actually leading to a black advantage. So queen c7 was played, and now after the trade and bishop d5, we get this ending. And the problem was that in this ending, it was very difficult here for white to keep their d-pawn. Black got bishop g8 in, and the rook was now coming around. We have seen another endgame earlier, but there white kept the d-pawn. Here, this is not possible. Black is invading and attacking this pawn, and you cannot keep it. absolutely cannot keep it. So
Check.
got this. And rook back to d8. Yeah, and I think this is a draw. It really is a draw. The pawn on a2 is supported from far back, from g8. White cannot regroup his knight to just attack the pawn and win it. It's really not possible. And you have no way of changing the pawn structure favorably. This game actually now, from here on, takes 60 moves. So
Check.
I don't want to analyze it that much. There was really, I mean, there were some little things that Karjakin had to look at, but it was really minor.
Check.
So we got, after some shuffling here and there, we even get rooks off. And here the problem is that f5 is continuous weakness. Yeah, black will always attack it with his bishop, so that white cannot just easily win this pawn. In the later stage, we see that
Check.
here Karjakin gets the bishop over here, where he actually does those two things: attack f5 and keep a2. It's important here that black should not play the move g6. It's absolutely not necessary. Often, in order to draw such simplified endings, you want to get as many pawns as possible off the board. I think here this is a mistake. Black shouldn't do that.
Check.
After this, white retains minor, admittedly minor winning chances. But he has some. Yeah, maybe like h4 here, f5, knight d5. And now trying to bring the king around and try to win one of the pawns. It might not work. Yeah, okay, in fact here f4 is already drawing.
Check.
Yeah, it's already a draw.
Check.
Yeah, and this you cannot continue. Yeah, in the game they shuffled forever here. It was really slightly unnecessary really to do that.
Check.
I don't think that this was played actually. Or is that? It was played, I'm sorry. And here they agree to a draw. Yeah, black in this position is just shuffling with his king, and white has no way forward. Yeah, you cannot go around to the pawn, let's say, because then black comes and takes this pawn, and yeah, then only black can win. Probably not really able to do so, but white has no chances whatsoever. So a narrow escape, definitely narrow escape in this game for Karjakin. He could have easily lost that one. I think easily is wrong, but there were, he was never in close to a win, and really was balancing on the edge there a little bit. Okay, Caruana Svidler is the final game to look at for round 13. Caruana on +2 in the lead. Svidler still with very minimal chances if he wins this game. So interesting. Rui Lopez. And Svidler is not a Berlin guy. He plays the classical one with a6. Yeah, the 63 line already had been played in this event more than once. Caruana, for example, tried it with white against Aronian. In that game, however, he played the move a3 against Levon. This time he tries a4. It's a little bit of a different approach. Bishop d7 and c3. A relatively modest looking setup, but this is not a bad choice if you want to play for a win. Yeah, it keeps many pieces on the board and delays the fight a little bit to a later stage. You don't have to fear that there's some forced line that just equalizes everything. Svidler now plays castles. Certainly not a bad move. I looked at some recent games here and I saw that knight a5 was also played. This is something that I actually would probably like to play in comparison to what Svidler does, because I'm a huge fan of getting the c-pawn somehow involved and get the knight away from c6. This kind of configuration is often not ideal, and we see that Svidler gets into some issues in the game. not because of this particular position here. I'm just saying that knight a5 addresses something that can become a problem. And yeah, let's put those moves on the board. They look relatively normal. Here, now a5, and after g6, bishop b3, bishop to e6, bishop to a4, and again bishop to d7. Yeah, we get that Spanish regrouping to g3. And around here, it's really a question, what is black doing with his pieces? Yeah, this is not good. Yeah, it looks at protected squares and would like to improve, but you cannot, I mean, you can go to e7, like after this, but white is not going to trade, and something like this, you really don't know what to do with your pieces now. There's also d4. Yeah, black's position is a bit cramped. Well, he played bishop g7. That also looks more normal. And now h3. Yeah, we come to the first critical position here. What should white play? What should black play? I'm sorry. I think Svidler was a bit fed up with maneuvering around. Yeah, it was. I'm not sure. This is my interpretation of things. Maybe he just overlooked something. Well, he should play something something slow. Rook b8, knight a7, something like that. What he played does not work at all, it seems. He went d5, opening up the center. Often it's kind of a rule in the Spanish or in the Italian game. If black gets in d5, he's usually okay. But then there's this little sentence behind that. He's usually okay unless he's not. And here he's not. It means like, okay, if you can play d5 unpunished, you should. But here you get punished. After takes, Caruana went knight e4. And we see the problem here. The c5 square is very, very weak. And black has problems with covering this. What should he play? The move f5 and looks immediately dicey here, but it is really bad in this case as knight c5 is pretty strong. There are some funny lines. After knight c3, check. King h7 is actually a move because queen c3 there's e4, which is in fact pretty good for white. Yeah, it's quite funny, e4, and here. What does white play? What does my note say? Let's check. Queen c3, e4, just queen d2. Yeah, takes, bishop b2. Yeah, it's a very, very funny line. If this is happening, it's queen h6. So takes on. Oops, I screwed up the window here. Sorry. Yeah, okay. And if this bishop b2, yeah, f5 is just far too loose. That's not working. Yeah, what did he play? He played the move knight to b8. Tried to trade the bishops and maybe get the knight back to d7, like in a Breyer variation. Yeah, bishop b3 again back. Yeah, Caruana is always flipping between those two squares. He had a better move, however, the move queen b3. This would have been very nice for white. The idea is to play queen to b7, and if black takes, the rook also gets activated. Here black has some trouble to play a good move. If he plays the totally normal looking move knight c6, then white has a tactic already. Whoosh. Quite nice, huh? Takes,
check,
and here white gets a pawn and a fantastic position as he has good pieces. So rook c4 sometimes. So knight c6 is not playable in this position. Rook a7 is a bit tougher, but this is also not great as white has, besides bishop h6 immediately, also the move d4, and this seems to be even better. For example, after takes, bishop h6, rook d4, white has a fantastic position because of this.
Check.
Yeah, and white is clearly better. He's a pawn up and has an attack. Queen b3 was very strong, it seems. He went back though, and This is not as convincing, but still pretty good. Bishop e6 now, and this is the next critical moment. Caruana now plays the move bishop d2 after long thought. It was very tough. And he had a good move available here, a move that we also discussed in the broadcast, the move knight to c5. It's a bit of a shame that he didn't do that, because it would have led to very interesting positions. Black is more or less forced to take on c3. Yeah, you have no other move. Knight c3, knight e6, rook e6, and then just move the queen after knight d5. Oops, come on, knight d5. White has the strong move d4. Yeah, white here has sacrificed a pawn, but he has an outstanding compensation. Yeah, I've got lots of space, the bishop pair, and attack. It's very nice. The queen, the knight is on b8, yeah, and how do you play with black? That would have been a very nice position for Caruana. Okay, he played bishop d2, however, and now Svidler all of a sudden gets lots of activity. He's clearly, the worst is clearly over for him. Bishop b3, queen c7. Yeah, black has more space here. That's quite nice. On the other hand, this whole formation that he has is also a little bit loose. Yeah, and this is what Caruana now tries to exploit by an aggressive move. Note that he must win this game. If he is not winning, he's very much accepting a situation where he has to win with black in the final round against Karjakin. He definitely wants to win this game or try everything possible. Okay, h4. This is the move. Okay, it might not be objectively that brilliant, but
Check.
it leads to the kind of fight that you want, I guess. h5, interesting move. This is a pawn sacrifice. After f4, knight e4, Svidler could take this pawn. He did take the pawn. And I think white probably has compensation for this, but not in the way as he plays. I think queen a4, or also the engine thinks queen a4 was probably a trying to put the queen on c4, playing on the light squares. It seems to be roughly compensation. It's maybe not objectively great, but it is definitely a playable position with chances, especially in time trouble. What he played is d4 after queen c6. Now queen a4 is not on, and after queen b3, black even had c4. And here, when we were broadcasting this, we thought that Svidler has clearly taken over in this game. And this is really the case. After queen a4, he is better. However, after queen d5, rook a to d1, he now plays a totally normal looking move that turns out to be a mistake. He plays rook a to e8, just overprotecting e5 there. Better was rook f8, but to see why, it's not so easy. After rook e8, Caruana now took on e5, and in this position had the move bishop f4. And the problem is that here black just has lost a pawn. If he plays rook takes e4, then white has intending this.
Check.
Yeah. Then white has queen e8.
Check.
And wins the house here. This is the difference to rook f8. If black, for example, had have played rook f8 here, then this whole thing is completely pointless, as rook e4 just wins.
Check.
No, and black has rook and two minor pieces, and he's got a direct attack. This is a complete win. Of course, after rook f8, white would not play this kind of line, but we see the point. Rook e8 was just an unlucky choice. Yeah, now Svidler had to do something like this, queen to b5, and now is in a worse ending. Yeah, those pawns are weak. This bishop will come here, and they were both in time pressure. And after this, we had move 40 was reached.
Check.
This is forced.
Check.
And bishop b4. Yeah, and here, when we got to this ending, we were pretty sure that Caruana will win this game. The a6 and the c4 pawn are both weak, so one of those will drop. White has good control, and there was no reason to believe that Svidler would hold. In the game, was rook e5 was played.
Check.
And we come to a critical position pretty soon. That got lost. That pawn, h5, king g2, king f7. And here's a critical moment, I think. Even though it's not so easy to figure this endgame out, yeah, in the last detail. Caruana wanted to have a position, obviously, where black takes on g4. Maybe, I say maybe, it is what the engine gives, but I'm not 100% certain to trust it here. Is to check and take here and play the f pawn. That was also, that was also suggested by my co-commentator, and it's actually main analyst, Grandmaster Ronan Hartsby in our broadcast. Ronan suggested that this would give more winning chances, and I probably have to agree. During the broadcast, I couldn't really determine it, but we see how this game unfolds. It's easy to say that it probably makes sense to get another passer. The h-pawn, in fact, is not that dangerous. Black quite often even is stopped by rook h7 here. Probably this was giving more chances.
Check.
This is how Caruana played, and this takes a long time, yeah, to just snatch the pawn back, and black managed in the meanwhile to get the king over. And here we couldn't find a way, in the broadcast at least, we couldn't find a way for white forward. We actually thought that black can just stay. It was a bit surprising to see a little bit later that Svidler actually decided to take on f2. With this capture and this trade, he allowed white to get control of the 6th rank. The point was that after this pawn is hanging. White, of course, took, covering a5, and now king b7. And this is Svidler's idea. With king to b7, he tries to kick the rook out and then get to the a5 pawn. King d3 was played, and now rook h5. This looks a bit mysterious. Why didn't he play king b7? Well, he could have played it, but I think he was probably a little bit afraid that in a position like this, white would go king e4. And after this, king f4, all of a sudden, this rook has no square to keep this bishop protected. It is, however, still a draw because of bishop b4. This is something that Svidler probably could not calculate till the end. Otherwise, I think he would have gone for it. Check. And here, yeah, if white doesn't check, then it's very simple, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a draw. So better is the check. King up, and now king c5, and this will fall. Yeah, for example, here, bishop c5, and then black will take and make a draw easily. Yeah, that was the cleanest way to a draw. But Svidler played rook h5 and now c5. Yeah, now he is forced to do this. King b7, rook back. And yeah, he cannot allow white, there's those two pawns, if they push further. So bishop a5. Bishop takes, rook takes. And we get this ending. Yeah, two rooks and an extra bishop for white. This is really a notorious ending. It occurs relatively frequently and is well known to be a draw. However, it is very difficult to do in a limited time situation. This is especially brutal if you play without an increment. The 30 seconds increment help a lot, so that at least you can think about every move, but it is very, very tricky to defend. We see that Svidler is getting to he plays a so-called second rank defense, what is the second rank defense? The rook is on the second rank, and a key idea, let me scroll a little bit forward. One key idea is that you can often defend with stalemates. I want to see here. Here, for example, is this a good moment to show it? Yeah, if the king comes here, for example, this looks critical, but black has this move for stalemates.
Stalemate.
Yeah, so white is not gaining anything. He has to go back and check again. So this is the key defensive idea here for black in this ending. It is, however, very tricky because white can kind of produce mirror images on all sides of the board, and you can easily get totally confused. In the game, actually, Svidler defended this very well, but it turned out to be that I mean, I can analyze that, but I don't want to. It's notoriously long, this kind of analysis, and maybe something for a separate video at one point. In fact, there was one moment where Svidler actually made a mistake, and then it was a winning position for Caruana, but it was impossible to do in the remaining moves. Here, rook h5 was technically speaking, a mistake. Please ignore the times. They didn't have that much time left, I think. Rook h5. Here white can win. Bishop f2 also wins, but the quickest win, I just want to show you how tricky it is rook to b2. Threatening mate. Rook h3. To be ready to cover this. And then bishop f2. Covers against a check and gets some kind of Zugzwang going. Yeah, what is black doing now? It's it's not easy at all to find a move. Rook here, this bishop up to here, threatening. Check, and it goes back. Again threatening mate. Rook f3. And now the check. Now if black goes up, there's rook b7. And here, what is the line? 109. Yeah, move 109. It's rook b6 is the line. King a2, check. Up, rook e2, intending check and win. Now bishop e3, covering this, threatening mate, and black has no way to defend. Here he would need to play king a3, check, king a4, check, and
checkmate.
Mate. That is actually move 116, and they had the last trade on move 66. So I think that would be a draw here, because it's exactly a draw here, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you can correct me, but I think even if Caruana would miraculously find the absolute most precise way to win, which is just shown by a table base, then I think it's still a draw, because he cannot make it in the 50 moves. Okay, so it continued a little bit more, and it was just from a theoretical point of view a draw again, and then in fact a win again instead of bishop f6. Rook b2 was, at least technically speaking, winning, but it was impossible by now to make it within the 50 moves. So it lots of drama. And a couple of more moves, and here they not agreed to a draw because it's 50 move rule. So so a very tough game for Caruana here, who, okay, he was in trouble maybe at one point in the time trouble phase, but he had a very good position, very close to winning, and ultimately it is just a draw. Yeah, and with this we have a situation before the final round that is in some ways confusing. The confusing thing is that there's still some importance to the game Anand plays. Anand is a half point behind Karjakin and Caruana, but with a win can only equalize the scores if they draw. And in this case, we would have a three-way tie in which Caruana would have the best tiebreaker. Because in their mini tournament he has the best score in among those three players. If, however, Anand is not winning and it's a draw between Karjakin and Caruana, then Karjakin is the one who qualifies for the match because he has more wins, or as you can say, if you are a little bit cynical, more losses. I like to say he has more losses because I think this is a ridiculous tiebreak. In a way, ridiculous. I think you can do that, but not to decide a World Championship challenger. Anyway, that game that we are going to look at shortly, Svidler Anand, is of some importance. Okay, let's however start with the less important games of the final round, because I want to make this video also below 2 hours. And the games were not that interesting actually. There was the game Giri Topalov. This is actually the game between two players that have not won a single game. Giri has 13 draws and Topalov has 5 losses and no win. They play a Catalan opening with a quick knight c3. Yeah, this is a bit different than castles, mostly in regard to this line. I was a bit surprised that after knight e5 now, this is actually an interesting line for white. I was a bit surprised that Topalov now played c5. Not that this is particularly bad, it's just that the latest fashion here is actually queen to d6, played by Kramnik against Peter Svidler. And after knight c4, queen a6, in fact, black had a very interesting position in that game. And I thought that would be right up Topalov's alley, this kind of position. But okay, he went c5. This is more of a solid move with d takes c5 being forced.
Check.
And now we have an ending. And in this ending, white at least has a symbolic advantage because of the better bishop on g2. In the game here, we actually see that this gets traded, and I think Topalov plays very precisely here in the defense. Okay, defense is a bit strong. I mean, he's not really worse, but he has to make sure that he gets the bishop out, which he does. Here, b6 now ready for trading on b7. Yeah, that got in fact traded. g5, everything's closed. Yeah, I really make quick work of this. Nothing much happened in this game. Here they repeated and made and agreed to a draw. So it was a game where really both sides, the only thing would have been nice for either of them to get a win in, but the kind of position didn't allow for it. So Topalov has probably one of the worst tournaments of his career with his -5, no win, and it sounds a bit harsh, but he even was a bit lucky. Yeah, he had losing positions against Caruana 2 times and got 2 draws miraculously. And he was totally lost. I mean, not just slightly worse. It was something where the engine is on -3 or things like that. So really bad tournament. And yeah, for Giri, what can we say? 14 draws. Yeah, this is he got much ridicule or whatever for that. But we have to say that if you look at just to look at the games, he actually played really well. It sounds weird, but he was, of all the participants, the one, he was never in trouble. Not really. I mean, against Aronian could have an advantage with this rook d4 move, as we saw earlier. But this was also clearly after something where Giri gambled a little bit with bishop f2. Other than that, in the, let's say, early stages of the tournament, or let's say the first 12 rounds, he was never worse, and he was winning in some games, yeah, against Nakamura, against Caruana. If he wins those 2 games, he wins the tournament. It's just what it is. So people can laugh whatever they want, but he did not play badly. He just had 2 or 3 games that were very, very dull, And in the others, he simply couldn't get the ball over the line, in some way. Okay, so the next game to check is Nakamura Aronian. I also make relatively short work of that. It was probably quite an interesting game, but it has limits what you can do in a single video. It's a Rogozin opening, and Aronian managed to get in this move e5, which is one of the goals of this particular line. It's quite interesting. With e5, the c8 bishop gets freed, and we get very lively piece play in the center. A key moment comes after castles, where Aronian also now could have played e4. I think that was an interesting move, pushing the knight away to e1, likely. And then black plays this with the space advantage here on the king side. Can lead to very sharp play. Note that something like bishop f5 is answered with f3. And this is probably not what black wants. Yeah, it's e4 is sharp, but okay, what Aronian did also is not leading to boring play. He went bishop d7, and after the capture on e5, white now tried to set his center in motion, f4. e4 was also possible, can also lead to very sharp play after, for example, rook e8, and now something like this, bishop c6 and check. And now a cool move like queen to d7, threatening queen h3. Very nice, but white has e6, and it's a big mess. And so there were a couple of interesting options even early on, but f4 is not a bad move. Bishop f5, counter-attacking. Yeah, and now if white goes e4, black is able to take with this. So queen went up here, rook e7, and queen to b7. So Nakamura plays in a very principled way. Yeah, it becomes now very tactical. Bishop c2, attacking the rook. Okay, it went to c1. That's, I guess, the most obvious move. Rook b8, queen a6, rook b2. It's a big mess. Black is a pawn down, but he has quite active pieces. And after knight to d1, attacking this rook, rook b6, queen a5, bishop b3, and queen to b8. I think black's activity is sufficient to compensate for the pawn. Maybe if you analyze real deep, you find something better, but I think what they played is making quite some sense to trade here. And now white tried to get the a pawn going. It's however very difficult to to get something very substantial. The problem is also that this move, this bishop b4, will trade the bishop. It looks like this is a bad bishop, but with the bishop d2 gone, the pawn e3 gets to be very, very weak. And in fact, there is nothing better anymore here than to trade everything off. And here they agreed to a draw. Yeah, for both players, certainly a tournament that they would probably rather want to forget. Yeah, Aronian had a very good start. He had a +2 score, which was the final score almost of the event. He had a +2 score after 7 rounds, and everything, it was his tournament to take in a way. And then he started to basically fall apart by losing against Anand, that very passive black game that he had, and then losing against Svidler. It's he had many opportunities but didn't take them. And Nakamura had a bad start, losing that early game against Karjakin where he blundered a piece, and he never could come back to that. It was simply not his event. He certainly had great expectations, but nothing came out of it at the end. Okay, the game Svidler-Anand. This is still somewhat relevant for the final standings. If Anand wins this game, then Caruana actually only needs a draw with black against Karjakin. But this is something that you don't know before move 1. You cannot just speculate, Anand is going to win this with black. and I can play for a draw with black. So it doesn't really work that way. They Karjakin and Caruana, they had to play a full game. You cannot speculate on anything here. Okay, we got again an English opening, and Anand is sticking to his bishop b4 line. Really surprising that he does it again. I mean, okay, here he plays a new move with rook e8. New move for him in this tournament. He has played e4 in that game against Karjakin against Caruana that he lost. And this is an idea that he didn't try yet. Svidler comes up with a regrouping, interesting regrouping. The knight over to c2, and now rook b1 to try to play on the queen side. We are actually here on virgin territory. This has not yet been played, this position. I think this is also a reason why this English opening has gotten this popularity in this event. They simply I think are somewhat tired of playing long theoretical lines where you have to reproduce things that you have analyzed with the computer all the time. Here you can get fresher positions that are not close to a draw, let's say, or analyzed to some extent. Okay, d5. So Anand switches to an open position, and I think it makes quite some sense. Here he is nicely centralized, even though after this we see that e5 is attacked. I was a bit surprised to see that he now plays the move bishop to d6. f6 looked totally normal here. I didn't think there was a particular reason to give up the bishop. This position looks fine. But it's well known that Anand has a weakness for knights, and here he just doesn't seem to care that after d4 takes, white is getting to this bishop pair position. Yeah, in fact, it seems that black is reasonably solid, but still, it was a bit surprising. Especially if you keep into... he does not need to win this game with black. We have to be clear there. With the win, he can only at best equalize with the two other guys, but he cannot win the tournament anymore as his tiebreak is too bad. He plays queen to e7. Hoping that white takes on d5, but okay, Svidler is not doing that. This is just leading into black getting this back with a good game. So e4 is stronger. c5, gaining some space. And it looks like a nice position, but he gets some counterplay by this with this better development that he has. All the pieces are centralized. Bishop d5 is a nice move, setting up the straights. And still, you think with the bishop pair, white can do something, but it's really not much. This was a nice move, setting up a blockade on the light square so that it is difficult for white to get anything going here. In the final position, and we had this is the final position after rook e6, you can actually argue that maybe white could continue here. It's not it's not brilliant or anything, but you could think of this. Bishop f3 takes and rook d1, trying to continue this with the two bishops. It doesn't feel like it should net much because white's pawn structure is a bit worse. And maybe Svidler didn't really want to do much there. He's got a 50% score in the event. Of course, he wanted to fight for more, but now in the final round, I think it's understandable that you probably don't want to sit there for a couple of hours and try to grind out this ending. So a draw agreed, which means that in the absolute key game of this round between the two leaders, Karjakin, Caruana, that Karjakin only needs a draw with white and Caruana has to win. Everything else is not enough. The reason for this, to again explain it, They are on equal points before the final round, both having the same points. In case of a draw, we would have a tiebreak system in place. The tiebreak is at first their individual encounters, which would be 2 draws in this case. And that means the second tiebreak would count, and this is the number of wins. And Karjakin has more wins because he has won 3 games and lost 1. That game that he lost against Anand. So he has 3 wins against Caruana's 2 wins. Caruana is unbeaten before the final round. And this is this funny tiebreak where it's actually good if you have lost a game. Yeah, okay, you've won a game more, but yeah, I don't think it makes any sense. I think I don't understand why they not simply play a playoff in form of a bunch of rapid games. This would be far more. It's just fairer, I think, than to get some wacky tiebreak in store. In case of the same number of wins, by the way, there would have been this Sonneborn-Berger system, which is something totally illogical. I don't even want to explain it. It's basically a lottery. Yeah, so I'm hugely in favor of those tie breaks for qualification spots, this kind of thing, to be decided by rapid playoffs. Okay, so Caruana has to win this. We'll see what happens. We see a Sicilian and knight c6. So he's going for what exactly? For this, for the classical Sicilian. This is seen very rarely in top-level chess, as it is believed to be quite risky for black. But quite risky is exactly the kind of thing that Caruana needs. Yeah, he needs something that he can fight with. And I think this was a good choice. Bishop g5, the so-called Rouser system. Queen to d2 and castles long. This is one of those old-school Sicilians where white is castling long and black is castling short or not at all. In fact, after bishop d7, f4, h6 was played, bishop h4, and now b5. Yeah, this is a super sharp line. What is the point? One point of b5 is the quick counterplay in the center, and white feels inclined to take on f6. This is what he did now. An important point is that queen takes f6 is not good due to e5. Yeah, there is this in the position. So g takes. And this is in fact what black wants in this position. He wants this kind of compact pawn center in the middle of the board with this double pawn, this kind of thing, this kind of block. But he also has the bishop pair. And this is I think, a good choice to play for a win, because you have that built-in imbalance. White in this position does not want to trade, actually. And this is funny. Yeah, you don't want to trade, but you also want to draw the game. And this is a very difficult game to play, because you kind of always have in the back of your mind, I need to draw, shouldn't I trade? And trading here is usually favoring black because of his pair of bishops and the pawn center. So I think an interesting choice here by Caruana. Yeah, what is Karjakin doing? He plays very straightforwardly f5. This is in fact the main strategic idea that white has, to attack those pawns. It usually means, now let me phrase it in another way. What black has to avoid here at all costs is to play e5, this kind of thing. Yeah, because now white is putting the knight somewhere and now has a fantastic square here. This is a little bit like the Sveshnikov without any counterplay. Yeah, it's just disastrous. So white wants to put pressure on this pawn, and black never wants to move it because he does not want to give up the d5 square. So he has to be very, very cautious here in the center. Queen to b6 is answered by f takes e6 and knight takes e6. Note that, just to show a line, if white plays some innocent move, let's say bishop to e2, then black, just to show the general idea, is happy to play this kind of ending. And now maybe something like h5. I'm not sure about the precise move order, but yeah, he has the bishop pair and a good center. Yeah, ideas like b4 in the right moment. This could be weak long term. So white does not want an ending. Okay, he took on c6 and developed. That was the main reason for capturing, to get a good bishop square. h5, king b1, b4, knight e2, and queen c5. So probably the last two moves, b4 and queen c5, were not so precise. By a very weird kind of transposition, we have now reached a position that has been played in a game, funny enough, almost 30 years ago, in a game between the Czech Grandmaster Brandstätter and Zdenko Kožulo, the biggest expert in the world of this line. 1988 it was, yeah, almost 30 years ago. And Brandstätter played a very strong move, I guess. He played the move e5. And this is a real nice attacking move. We can check some possibilities. It was not played by Karjakin, I can tell you that right away. First easy thing is this. This is mate next move with queen d7. So that is not working. Okay, taking with the pawn. Then white has queen to g5, threatening bishop g6 checkmate. This leads after queen g7 to a very strong attack. Something like rook f8, rook f1 for example. Yeah, the bishop has this. White has a very strong attack. But this is the best that black can do. In that game, Kožulo actually played e5. He took with the queen. And after rook h to e1, white's position was very strong. Even stronger was the check. And after a king move, rook e1 intending those knight moves. And white's attack is decisive. The move e5 was very strong. Would be interesting to learn why Karjakin didn't play it. Maybe it was due to the situation in the event where a draw was enough. It's also that this e5, f takes, queen g5, it is not totally clear. It's not like white wins, but the attack looks quite promising. Okay, this was played. Far safer move. At a5. b3, not a move I expected, but it seems that he wanted to be able to, after a4, maybe to capture and give the king a little bit of luft. I think the position is roughly equal. Rook g8 and king e7, shielding the pawns. Black long term, as I said more than once, is quite happy. His bishops, his center, all good. But one problem is definitely there and will not easily go away. The black king is always shaky in this line. It is in the middle of the board and never really feel very comfortable. Yeah, bishop c4 was played, looking at the e6 pawn. Now Caruana probably played a risky move, bishop to e3. But the move, I mean, risky is relative. I think it's maybe risky if you think about this in machine terms, in computer terms. The computer wants to play knight to f4 and just tries to grab this pawn. The thing is that black has very substantial compensation. If we look at this bishop d4, for example, this is what the computer is giving. Yeah, a line like that. And the computer thinks that white is better. Well, I mean, you can argue about that, first of all, and I can definitely assure you that this is not a position that a human player wants to play. This is just not looking good. So it is maybe risky, as I said, in machine terms, but probably a good move in a human game. Maybe in general, but it's difficult to assess nowadays. I think a human player wouldn't want to play that position with the bishop coming to e5. Rook f3 is far more normal. Rook f8, that was covered. And knight to f4. Yeah, here Caruana decided to take on f4. It's probably difficult not to do it. So he took it. Yeah, for example, I mean, what should black try? If he wants to play something like that, then knight takes e6 is already a problem.
Check.
H4 was a bit unlucky. It's difficult to suggest something. This is also not bad at all. Bishop f4, rook f4. Pawn takes was possible, was not bad, but rook takes is certainly not illogical to keep the pressure on the f-file. And now a4 was played. This is actually a move that I think you could debate if this is really great. It is opening up the position a bit, which is maybe in general in black's something that black does not mind, but it also weakens the b4 pawn a bit. It wasn't bad at all probably to just play here and go for queen to e5. I think most human players would prefer black here a little bit, and I'm one of those. I mean, not that black is a lot better or so, but I think black feels a bit easier to play there, if you ask me. You also know that an ending, for example, is good for you. Yeah? You can play this in ending, play against those pawns. It looks quite comfortable. Okay, a4 was played. Not saying that is a mistake, but it was interesting also to delay this. Yeah, and now this position is again quite an interesting one. Yeah, here Karjakin decided to not stay, let's say, passive or just keep the position, but played the move e5. This is a very aggressive try. Probably it's a good move. It's quite tough to assess. What can black do? It's always funny, those breakthroughs on squares that are protected a million times. You have to look at all the captures. Here you can quickly discard a couple. This is not working at all due to rook c4. Yeah, the queen is attacked, and if it moves away, then queen d6 wins. Or in this case, queen h7.
Check.
So this is not working. Pawn takes, queen h7
Check.
is also, I think,
Check. Check.
pretty easy to check. Okay, that leaves rook takes and queen takes. Queen takes, there is the surprisingly strong move rook c4. Attacking this, and after bishop back, rook c7 is very active for white. There's this threat, for example. Here white is probably better. Always tough to judge, but white is probably better with this activity. In the game, rook e5 was played by Caruana. Here, at first, if you look at the computer, it gives 0, 0, 0 and a draw at first.
Check.
With this line, check, and queen h8, and the computer gives this.
Check.
And says it's a draw. So could Karjakin have forced a draw here? No, actually not, because black can avoid this draw after queen to h8 by going with the move queen to b5. It's quite interesting. Idea is to play queen here and queen a8 maybe. It's a computerish move, but it avoids the draw. Black is a pawn up, and it's messy. So I think that would have been, very okay with Caruana. A possible way of this continuing, just to show the type of position. It could happen. I know that it's not maybe very logical that moves here, but I just want to show what type of position black is after. Black wants to play this position, for example. Here he has those three pawns and can do something in the center, while this a pawn is not very dangerous. Black's pawn structure is a bit more compact. And while this is not something winning or anything, it's certainly not bad at all if you want to try to win. Queen h7, however, was not played. The move that Karjakin played is rook c4, attacking the queen. And here it's difficult, yeah? What is black supposed to do? If he goes somewhere here, there's just this, right?
Check.
So only rook d5 is playable. And now queen to e2, keeping the queen attacked. Queen to b6. Here, black could have played rook d1, queen d1, and queen d5. This is actually, I think, a pretty solid choice that Caruana could have played. He maybe thought that this is not giving him enough to play for win, but I think this is something that black can be quite happy with. In the game, he played queen to b6. I don't think this is a mistake, but see what happens in the game, you know? Rook h4, so attacking this rook. Rook e5, queen d3, attacking on d6. White has definite compensation for his pawn. Caruana now found a nice move. Bishop g2, right into the white camp. Not playing d5 and putting this bishop passive. Rook to d4 and d5. d6 was hanging after all. And now queen d2, attacking this. Yeah, and now we come to the decisive moment of this game, and then ultimately of the event and the question who challenges Magnus Carlsen. What Caruana now should have played is probably the move bishop e4. That bishop is hanging after all, like this, and then this position. I think here we are dealing with probably around equal, but still playable kind of position where anything could have happened, I guess. He played rook e4, however, and after this, there are only two scenarios: black being hugely better, or Karjakin finding the right move and winning the game. And he found the move that wins the game. It's yeah. If you have not seen it, you can treat it as an exercise. White to play and win. And the move is rook takes d5. Yeah, that's also the only move that is not clearly worse. Yeah, if black gets to take here and so on, then he's clearly then white is clearly worse. Yeah, but he can take there. It is a rook sack and it works. Yeah, black cannot decline the sacrifice. Then white is just breaking through anyway. So takes, queen takes. White is a rook down, but he's threatening queen d7 checkmate. And black actually has no defense. Yeah, absolutely no defense. Yeah, what can we look at? There is the square f7. It's a mating square. So the black rook here cannot move. White also threatens this. Queen d7, however, can never be covered with the rook or bishop move. So that means that black only has queen moves. It's just like that. And the only queen move to cover d7 is queen to c7. Yeah, and this is not enough because of queen to f5. This was the point. Yeah, looking at this and keeping this in the position. Black has no defense. It's quite funny. Yeah, for example, like rook c8.
Check. Check. Checkmate.
Is one of the mates that is possible here. Yeah, black has no defense. Whatever you try, there's nothing available. Yeah, this was still played by Caruana, and white takes. Yeah, now after king takes, queen h7, queen is gone. Yeah, he still played this move, but now it's already made in a couple of moves. Check, king f8, rook d8, and here Caruana resigned. After king takes, there's check and
checkmate.
Mate, yeah. So our congratulations, or my congratulations, to the challenger of the world champion now, Sergei Karjakin. He won this event at the end with a +3 score. So the same score that was reached, I think, in London by Carlsen 3 years ago. +3 in Karjakin's case was 4 wins. The 4 wins were, I think, reasonably convincing. yeah, he had a very good, he had a win against Nakamura, when Nakamura blundered a piece but was under pressure the whole game. So a good win for Karjakin there. He beat Anand in a very nice game. He beat Topalov very convincingly. And he won this game, which was, of course, a battle of nerves. But it was a round equal position the whole time. And then Caruana, yeah, couldn't stand the pressure or whatever, just made a mistake with that rook e4 move at the end. So nothing to blame Karjakin for. He played a good game and won fair and square. So he won 4 games. He lost 1 game against Anand, where Anand played a technical masterpiece, really. So also not a weak game or something by Karjakin. Karjakin had a couple of critical situations, however, where he could have lost games for sure, but he helped them with his great defensive skills. For example, he could have he was close to losing against Aronian, and that was not the only case. He was also completely lost against Svidler at one point, and somehow managed to save a draw. So close call. Caruana, I think, in some way should have won the event. It's easy to say that, but he had so many opportunities. He should have won against Topalov 2 times. He had 2 completely winning positions against him. And this is a full point that's lacking. Yeah, if he had won those 2 games, then he could have lost that game here, and it would be very, very easy, because then he has so many wins, nobody cares, right? So he basically spoiled the event by not scoring those 2 wins. And he had that good position against Svidler that he did not convert. He had a couple of chances. And of course he also had critical situations. But there was only one really, really critical one where he was lost against Giri. But he somehow fought that to a 90-move draw. So at the end, Karjakin will challenge Magnus Carlsen, as it stands, probably in New York. I'm not sure if this is really taking place. I mean, I'm not having any inside information, but with a Russian player challenging the world champion, it can always be that some Russian sponsor might be interested in this. I hope you enjoyed the coverage of this event. I made 13 at the end, 13 long videos. If you watched all of them, you're a very tough cookie. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.